Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is our Loki Episode 2 open spoiler discussion. Now, just to be 1,000% clear, this is an open spoiler discussion. In case you didn't read it in the title, in case you didn't hear me say it the first time, because you'd be surprised how many times I still get complaints from people saying, how come you spoiled everything in that spoiler discussion? This is a spoiler discussion. We're going to talk about all the spoilers in Loki Episode 2. So if you have not seen Loki Episode 2 yet, I do recommend adding this to your favorites list. Come back and watch it a little bit later. But guys, today is Loki Day, Episode 2. I have been waiting for this day, not to watch the episode because I saw the episode a couple of weeks ago, but I've been waiting for you guys to see it so we can finally talk about it. And now you guys get it. Remember, like I said, Loki is basically like a time-traveling detective story, right? And so after people saw the first episode, they're like, I had a few people write to me saying, you called it a time-traveling detective story. It didn't really feel like that. But now that you've seen episode number 2, now you totally know what I was talking about, right? Yes, by the way, one of my favorite lines in the episode, one of my absolute favorite lines in the episode is, I don't need your sympathy. Good, because I'm running low. I love that line. I thought that was great. You called me a petulant child or something. I called you a lot of things. Love that line. The banter, can I just say this? The banter between Loki and Mobius makes this show. I love the banter between the two of them. Like when you got a character like Loki being played by a Tom Hiddleston, it's very easy. It's very easy to be overwhelmed by that character if you're another character in a scene, right? But Owen Wilson is totally owning it. Owen Wilson is doing so good in this show. I mean, you could tell in episode 1, but it feels like in episode 2, that's where he really starts to shine, right? And his and Loki's dynamic, I think it is absolutely awesome. And by the way, now people know when the He-Man trailer came out, and I said, I actually found the trailer kind of lame. And I said, and that hero song's a little overused. I mean, it is overused, but I had just seen it in Loki episode 2 a while ago. So I'm like, that I need a hero song's a little bit overused. Anyway, so there's that. Listen, I want to spend the majority of today taking your observations, theories, comments, and questions and thoughts about Loki episode 2, and about where we might be going in episode 3. Now, the way you sent in, yeah, Delusional Patriots fan writes, you literally stabbed people in the back at least 50 times. That was great. Yeah, and that's why it got old. Anyway, the way you send in a comment or question is not by using the tip link in the description below. That's for the John Campea Show. For our spoiler discussions and our pregame shows, you simply use the YouTube Super Chat feature. So that's what you use to send in comments, questions, theories, whatever, for these special videos, and then you use the tip link down in the description to send in questions for the John Campea Show. So just so you're clear, that's how that works. Anyway, love this episode. Now you guys know what I was saying was, I think I actually like episode 2 even more than episode 1. That whole thing where Loki was deducing, first of all, when he's reading all the paperwork on Ragnarok and the destruction of Asgard, you could tell first he's feeling very emotional, but then you could see when that eureka moment hit him. It's like, wait a minute, if they all died, then nothing that happened there could possibly cause a Nexus event. And you see him doing that and going through it. I love the scene where he's sitting down in the cafeteria with Mobius using the salad. He's pouring the salt on the salad. Then he posts. I mean, I just thought the whole thing was great. And then, of course, the reveal at the end. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, I am not sold on the idea that that's actually Lady Loki. It's a little too fast, too quick, too easy. And it's, you know, I no insider information here, no insider knowledge. This is just me speculating like everybody else. But, you know, in the scene where he's fighting kind of himself and fighting Randy and all that kind of stuff, like Loki says some things that make you think whatever, like even just a little hint, like when he says, I would never hit myself like that. I mean, it just feels like there are little hints. Look, I'm not saying definitively it's not Lady Loki. There are a few people in the live chat who are saying kind of what I'm thinking, Enchantress. Might be an Enchantress, or even something else entirely. But it's going to be interesting to see where indeed they go with that. I mean, the fact that she set off all these reset charges on the timeline. That feels like something that happens just before the finale. But this was only episode 2. So what's happening now? Loki steps through that warp gate. I don't know what else to call it, whatever. At the end. I mean, anyway, yeah. It was everybody in the live chat is saying it's Lady Mephisto. That's right. It's Lady Mephisto. Anyway, I love this episode. I am 1 week away now from watching a new episode of Loki. You know, when I saw Loki episodes 1 and 2, I was like over 3 weeks away from seeing a new episode of Loki. But now I'm just 1 week away. But now it's time for us to talk about this. And we are going to take your comments and questions as we do it. So let's not waste any more time. Get on over and start taking the things you guys want to talk about. All right. We're going to start things off here with, hold on a second. Let me get my shot a little bit better positioned here. I need a hero. Told you it was overdone. All right. Okay, let's get things going here. Frankie Gouge writes, I'm at the point that I believe that nothing in Loki is as it seems. Completely agree. Completely agree. Like, I remember the end of last week's episode was kind of a hint, right? Because Mobius reveals who we're hunting, Loki, is another version of you. But then it shows that other variant burning the Minutemen in the field. It's like, well, if they're just told us it's another Loki variant, why are they still not showing us their face? And that's part of the reason why I don't actually buy into this is Lady Loki yet. I mean, maybe it will end up being Lady Loki. I don't know. But we'll see. All right, next up. Ismail Montoya writes, hey, John. This episode was glorious. It was glorious. Lady Loki has the power to mind control without the scepter / mind stone. Seems she's stronger than our Loki thoughts. Again, I'm not even sure that it is Loki, and it wasn't mind control. Right? Like a mind control is you can get somebody to do something. That was, for lack of a better term, let's just say Lady Loki, even though I'm not sold that is Lady Loki. That was actually Lady Loki in the body. That wasn't mind control. That was, for lack of a better term, possession. It was possession. DB wrote the same thing in the live chat. It was possession, right? And so, again, I don't know. Maybe it is a Lady Loki. I don't know. But listen, a Lady Loki would be a wild variant because that Loki would have to be a variant from the moment they were born. But I don't know. The long and short of it is, it's really interesting what they're doing. We'll see where they go with that, Ismail. All right, next up. We've got Evelyn who writes, I don't know why, but for me, the fact that a Loki variant won the Tour, that's right, because you saw the different variants. The Tour de France was one of my favorite moments, and the image they had was hilarious. Yeah, that as Mobius was going through the different versions. First of all, they had the Hulk one, which is pretty cool, but then they had the Tour de France one. That was pretty funny, Evelyn. I completely agree with you. That was good. All right, next up. Frankie also writes, current thought, the variant, chaotic good versus TVA, lawful evil. Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, look, obviously there's a lot. What's a common trope to do in movies or shows like this? That the all governing, body is good, but you find out later they're evil. I mean, that's been done a lot. And so a lot of people are theorizing that we're going to find out that the TVA itself is evil, right? Maybe. I mean, it's been done 100 times, but maybe they'll do it again and maybe they'll have a good reason for it, but we'll have to see where they go with that. I like the D&D comparison though, Frankie. All right. Evelyn also writes, I don't buy this. That's Lady Loki. I say it's an imposter. Again, listen, if this was the season finale, maybe I would buy it, but it's so early in the show that, and again, I don't know that it's not Lady Loki. I don't know. It very well could end up being that's what she is. But right now, I'm with you, Evelyn. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it right now. James Argento writes, I now think Kang is the other Agent Mobius and Renslayer we're talking about in her office. Over under 20% Mobius or Loki are in Ant-Man 3. There's some people I see theorizing online that Mobius is a Loki variant. I don't know that I believe that, but there are just some people speculating that right now. Anyway, I'm going to go under 20% that we see either Mobius or Loki in Ant-Man 3. If you split them up, though, I would say there is a slightly higher chance that Mobius shows up in Ant-Man 3 rather than Loki. But I'm not sure. I'd give Mobius showing up in Ant-Man 3 a 5% and a Loki showing up in Ant-Man 3 a 1%. I mean, there's no connection between Ant-Man and Loki, so that wouldn't really seem like a crossover that would make much sense. But Mobius showing up, I'll give that 5%, so well under 20. All right, thanks for that, James. All right, next up, Ismail writes, John, is it me, or is this the beginning of the Multiverse of Madness? Well, I mean, a lot of people think the beginning of the Multiverse of Madness was the first Doctor Strange movie. Then some people believe that the beginning of Multiverse of Madness was in Infinity War with the snap itself. Some people think it was Endgame when they went around and did the thing with the Infinity Stones. So, I mean, some people think it might be WandaVision with them saying she is in and of herself a Nexus being. So, I mean, I don't know. It does seem obvious, though, that there's narratively at least going to be some kind of connection there. We'll see how deep that connection goes, though. All right, next up. Steel Smith writes, definitely feels like Feige realized he needed to let his shows breathe a little bit more. Ever since WandaVision, it's gotten better overall. Great episode. Yeah, I mean, I loved WandaVision. Absolutely loved WandaVision. My one critique that I had of it as the show was ongoing was the fact that it felt like the show needed more room to breathe, right? That's the exact terminology I used before. It felt like it needed more time. Not to do more things, not to have more events happen in the show, the exact same events, but just give it a little bit more breathing room, whether with a little bit longer run times in the episode or add an additional episode. But this one, I'm telling you what, right now, the pace of this Loki show is chef's kiss, man. It's perfect. It never feels like they're rushing. It never feels like it's dragging. There's a good constant cadence and pace to it. I feel like the tempo of this show, at least through 2 episodes, has been like basically right on. But yeah, WandaVision was absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I loved it. Again, the only complaint I had was, again, that the pacing sometimes felt like it could have used like a little bit more breathing room. But Loki has nailed it so far for me. All right, let's move on here. Next up, that was Steel Smith. Okay, next up we have, why am I having problems bringing, there it is. James Hoffman writes, in a multiverse, all timelines are equally valid, says who? So what gives the timekeepers the right to say that the sacred timeline is the correct one? Well, okay, look, 2 things to point out. Number 1, who says all timelines are equally valid? I never said that. I never heard anybody in the MCU say that. So who says that all the timelines are equally valid? Maybe they're not. The other thing, though, is this. If I remember, and I may not be remembering it right, it wasn't that the timekeepers, they didn't say in the first episode that the timekeepers just eliminated all of the other timelines. The impression I got was that they kind of coalesced everything into one sacred timeline. So it's like all those timelines kind of became a part of the solution. If I'm remembering it right, maybe I'm not, whatever. Okay. Thanks for that, James. Next up, Frankie writes, also, I think the bombing of the sacred timeline is just a distraction. The variant is after something else. Oh, I agree. Because if the bombing of the sacred timeline was the end goal, really? The antagonists reach their end goal in episode 2 of a 6-episode story? That seems unlikely. So I think you are 1,000% right. I think you're 1,000% right on that, Frankie. All right, next up, Casey McNatt writes, so, in a way, Lady Loki pretty much made a Nexus-sized event that has the TVA going in to investigate, leaving the TVA defenseless when she obviously is looking for the timekeepers. Sounds like a distraction to me if there ever was one. I don't know that she's looking for the timekeepers. I think that in and of itself might be the distraction. Right? Because one of the things that this variant, we're calling the variant Lady Loki right now, although I right now don't believe it's Lady Loki, but I mean, it might be, we'll find out. But one of the things this variant said to Loki was, look, I'm not interested in taking over the TVA. Like, she's not interested in overthrowing the timekeepers. So what is this variant actually after? What is the variant after? I don't think they've let us know yet. But I think Loki is going to find out in the next episode. I think episode 3, as we hit the midway point of the series, once we get to the end of episode 3, I think Loki going through that portal, I think he's going to find out, okay, what is it this variant is after? And then that will set the stage for the second half of the show, for episodes 4, 5, and 6. I mean, that's my guess at any rate. We'll see. All right. Next up. Jose Man writes, "Hey, John, got a feeling that's not Lady Loki." I again, man, I completely agree. I feel like it's a little early. If they revealed it was Lady Loki in the second last episode, I'd probably buy it. Right now, seems a little early. Again, a few other little suspect things being said. I'm not sure I buy it either. All right, Casey McNatt writes, and like sends in like a $15 super chat. Thank you, Casey. Also, the talk of Loki using illusions to fool people may come into play. It absolutely will come into play. May come into play because the variant said she doesn't like to be called Loki. So maybe there is a bigger person at play here. 100%. That was another one of the little suspect things. Like when Loki gets hit and goes, wait a minute, I wouldn't have done that to myself. And he's like, Loki, and says, oh, don't call me that. Or again, there's just these little crumbs all over the place that just cast doubt on that whole thing, right? Just cast doubt on the whole thing. So, I mean, I can't remember where I heard it before, but I also think you're completely right about that when Loki is describing the difference between, what was it, a hallucination, illusion, and self-duplication, is giving that whole speech, right? There's a rule in screenwriting that says, if in Act 1 you focus on a shotgun hanging on the wall, then by Act 3, that shotgun hanging on the wall should come into play, right? It's just an old thing there. It seems like they focused in on this big distinction thing for no apparent reason that Loki was making. I have a feeling you're right, Casey. I think that will come back into play a little bit later in the show. We'll find out. All right, Purple Queen writes, Ms. Minutes was so adorable in that opening scene. I loved it. Tara Strong is a gem. Good Canadian girl, by the way, Tara Strong. I did enjoy this episode. That was pretty just like, I don't get, are you alive? Are you recording? Sort of both. I love Ms. Minutes. Oh, you know what I can't believe? I didn't wear my Time Variance Authority jacket. They sent me a Time Variance Authority jacket. I totally should have that. I totally should get that. All right, you know what? Give me 45 seconds here, guys. Just hang tight with me. Don't go anywhere. Give me 45 seconds. All right, thanks for indulging me, guys. Sorry about that. Had to go get my my TVA. Had to go get my jacket, and I had to bring Ms. Minutes in here. Hello, everyone. That's a terrible Miss Minutes I'm doing here, but I got my for all time. I think it's supposed to say always somewhere. Anyway, got my Ms. Minutes here. I should totally put her up on something. Let's see if I can put her up on this. Hold on a second there. All right, we'll do this for now. Okay, so oops, how did that change? Okay, so there, Ms. Minutes is back there now. I'll have her back there instead of my YouTube plaque. So yeah, Ms. Minutes is there, and now let's keep going on. All right, how did I get this? I don't know how this goes. Anyway, whatever, who cares? It's hot, so I'm probably gonna take this off in a minute, but I just thought I should at least for a minute put on this TVA jacket. Okay, where were we? We were with, oh yeah, Tara Strong's gem, absolutely gem, like I said, good Canadian girl. All right, let's move on here. Where are we at? We're at Suthius, who writes, After this episode, I'm going to stick with my initial gut feeling and say that the people of the TVA were not created by the Keepers. Instead, they are all variants plucked away from the sacred timeline. That's not a terrible theory. That's not a terrible theory. Because think about it. Like, it would be more humane, like instead of just eliminating somebody who accidentally broke the sacred timeline, who didn't even know there was such thing as a sacred timeline, you integrate them into the TVA, maybe wipe their memories. I don't know. Because as it looks like Loki is kind of getting absorbed into the TVA. Maybe yes, possibly, could be, maybe. Again, there's not a lot there to back it up, but it's not a terrible theory. So I don't know. We'll see. This is a good one, Suthius. This is a good one. Next up, Sam Fisher writes, holding out for a hero has been showing up everywhere. The MOTU trailer, Masters of the Universe trailer, the GOTG, I guess that's Guardians of the Galaxy trailer, and now episode of Loki. But you knew that, right, John? Oh yeah, I knew that. That's one of the reasons why I've been commenting. This is just being way overused, but it's a great song. It's a great song. It is. All right. Sam also writes, I have to say, hiding out in the apocalypse is really clever, dude. It's not just that that's a cool idea, and it makes logical sense. Right? Because a lot of times in any stories, TV shows, or movies where they have time travel stuff, it's a lot of the stuff that they bring up actually makes no sense, but you just go with it. Okay, that's what they're saying in the movie or TV show. But that actually makes sense. And I also love the way that Loki, like just doing good detective work, came up with that. And then, of course, the salad scene and everything, it was great. I loved it. I agree with you. It was totally clever. Suthius also writes, I like that the hunters have rankings, B15, C20, etc. Was wondering if we'd see any hunters that are ranked A. Lo and behold, we see Renslayer's old helmet and on her shelf, which is designated A23. That was a really good observation. By the way, can I point? This jacket is really warm. It's like really hot. Okay. Can I point something out? It was killing me. It wasn't until today that I finally figured it out. In episode 1, Hunter B15, the one that catches Loki in the first place, I'm like, who is this girl? Why do I know her? What do I know her from? Why does she look so familiar? And I always forgot to look it up. And then today, I finally realized, oh yeah, I got to look this up. The reason she looks so familiar is because she's Ruby from Lovecraft Country. She's Ruby from Lovecraft Country. And she is, if you guys have watched Lovecraft Country, she's great in that show. Like, absolutely great. So that's why when I'm like, who is this? Why do I know her? And why do I like her? Even though I can't remember, that's who she was. So anyway, that was good to see. I'm glad I finally figured that out. All right, thanks for sending that in, Suthius. And I like the way you deduce that. That's really good. All right, next up. Jacob Silvers writes, after that episode, now I'm starting to believe that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield will be in Spider-Man No Way Home. Again, listen, I don't want to change topics onto Spider-Man. Again, my position is very clear. There is no evidence, no real evidence, that Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire are going to be in Spider-Man No Way Home. That said, without any evidence, I have believed, for you guys who watch the show, you know, I've believed for a while that they are going to be. But again, there's no proof to back that up. But I believe they're going to be in there. What just recently happened was that Spider-Man thing came out on Sony's Argentinian Twitter, where the Spider-Man No Way Home logo did a Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse glitch, like the one in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And to me, although, again, they never confirmed anything, they never said anything, that to me was like, oh, that pretty much settles it. Like, again, if they don't show up, I won't be surprised because there's been no actual evidence that they are showing up. But I kind of believe that they will. So I don't know. We'll see. All right. Thanks, Jacob. Next up, Crashing Coyote writes, do you think Richard E. Grant is playing a timekeeper? And will we get some Loki on Loki action? If so, would it be considered incest or masturbation? Bring on the filthy. I get it. Again, I don't think she's Loki anyway. I don't think she's actually. That's a good question. If one Loki messes around sex with a different Loki, is that incest or is that actually masturbation? That's a very good question. We'll leave that one up to the philosophers to discuss. Is sex with an alternate realities version of you actually just elaborate masturbation? Again, we'll leave it up to the scientists and to the philosophers to debate. All right, next up. Heavy Critic writes, what do you think? Could quote unquote Lady Loki really be Sylvie? Listen, there's been a lot of people with that theory. That theory has been running around a lot. It's not a bad one. AKA Enchantress. It just seems a bit too easy that she'd be Lady Loki. You're completely expressing my train of thought on that. It just seems a little too easy, a little too quick, and a little bit too early in the show. And they seem to be dropping these little crumbs that it's a misdirect. Again, we don't know. Maybe we'll find out in the next episode that it really is Lady Loki. But I think Enchantress is a good bet. I'm not saying 100%. I'm not saying I'd bet the farm on that. But right now, it kind of seems like that's a good bet. Who knows? We'll see where we go. But I like the way you're thinking, Heavy Critic. All right, Casey McNatt writes, one of two. Crazy theory. Here, what if Morbius... Now, do you mean Morbius or Mobius? Crazy theory. What if, I'm going to assume you mean Mobius. What if Mobius is a past version of a Loki variant? That's something we talked about a little bit earlier. It seems oddly suspicious that this Lady Loki pretty much knows all about the TVA and the devices they use. What if the Lady Loki is using some type of disguise and is somebody that has worked for the TVA and has been taught from our Loki how to hide in these apocalypse type of events? 3-3. Because after all, as Loki said, people aren't truly bad and people aren't truly good. I mean, that's a possibility. Again, we are looking for alternate identities to Lady Loki. Lady Loki, because I don't think it's Lady Loki. Enchantress is a big one. That's the one that's being talked about a lot. But what if it's something else? What if it actually is a former member of the TVA who just knows all about, you know, the Lokis and whatever? I mean, then again, how does a TVA member suddenly develop, you know, possession powers and all that kind of stuff? I don't know. But still, that opens the door that is rather interesting, Casey. It does open a door. Like, what if it's a former member of the thing? That would actually make a pretty good story. Like a member of the TVA just sick of it and spends a lot of time investigating Loki, figuring it out, and then plotting this plan. I don't know. It would make for a pretty good story. Let's see where they go. All right, next up. Suthius writes, I'm going to guess that because Loki eventually loses his mother, father, and his home, he may think that Lady Loki perhaps went through the same thing and may help her heal and talk her down by the end. Again, I mean, that's a hard one for me to accept, only because I don't accept that that's Lady Loki. And it could be. I'm not sitting here saying definitively it's not. I don't think we have enough information yet. But right now I'm kind of leaning away from it being Lady Loki. So I don't know. It depends. Again, the big problem I have is that if this really was Lady Loki, then this is a variant right from birth. So how come as a variant from birth, the TVA, they've never been on the TVA's radar before, right? So I don't know. We'll see, man. All right, Frankie writes, I would like to reiterate that the multiversal war may, from our perspective, be in the future. The variant is the trigger. Could be, because remember, again, going back to the remote control example, the timekeepers and the TVA live outside of time. The time is beginning and end. That multiversal war could have happened at any point in that timeline. Or listen, the multiversal war may very well be outside of the sacred timeline. Because remember, the sacred timeline, which we live in, came into being at the end as a result of the multiversal wars, right? At least according to episode 1. So that means the multiversal war shouldn't be happening within the sacred timeline. It should have happened before the sacred timeline came into being. But I don't know. It's tough to figure out how they handle this stuff. So maybe it does mean it's something that's going to be happening in the future. We'll have to see. All right. That was Frankie. Next up, Elif writes, I haven't heard Bonnie Tyler's I Need a Hero in years, and now I can't get it out of my head. Again, Guardians of the Galaxy game, the Masters of the Universe trailer. Now it's in Loki. It's a great song, but it is overused a little bit lately for sure. All right, Casey. Oh, we already got Casey's there. Elif also writes, on the topic of I Need a Hero, do you think the song has any significance? Does it mean that the Loki variants are the heroes of the series, or does it mean that Lady Loki thinks of herself as a hero? Neither. I think it is exactly what it was in the show. It's the song that plays during the medieval theater. Because remember, what does the pre-recorded voice say? You know, are you here for the valiant knights or whatever? Or are you holding out for a hero? So it was totally a part of the Renaissance Fair. I don't think it had any, remember, the Need a Hero wasn't a part of the soundtrack. That was actually something that was just playing there in the theater because that's the song that plays with the theater. So honestly, I don't think it has any significance. I just think it's the song that was playing in the theater at the time. Other than that, I don't think there's any significance. All right. Elif also writes, over under 10%, Mobius rides a jet ski at the end of the series. 10%? Dude, I'll go 70. I'll go 70 on that bad boy. Hey, remember we were talking about before, if in Act 1 you focus on a gun on the wall, and that was totally, I absolutely believe, I'm not going to say 100%, but I absolutely believe we're going to see Mobius on a jet ski before this thing's over, for sure. All right, next up, Isaiah Campbell writes, 1 of 2. This show has me hoping we see a what-if episode of other MCU characters in the TVA. Thanos finding the stones means nothing. Ultron Vision going through the metal detector, or Luis from Ant-Man explaining what a fish is to Casey. Listen, I've said this before, I will say it again. I think every MCU movie should start with a 5-minute Luis segment setting up the story. I think every MCU show, every MCU movie should absolutely start with 5 minutes of Michael Pena setting everything up. So like WandaVision would be, okay, so you guys remember Wanda. Wanda was, and then she met Vision, and then he died, and that's where we are now. I mean, that should totally be how everything in the MCU starts. I'm still waiting for them to do something like that. Okay, next up, Elif writes, what if the Timekeepers is a Wizard of Oz situation? We've talked about this before. Timekeepers are used in the propaganda, but there really is no individual behind the curtain. Well, that's not exactly the Wizard of Oz comparison, because there is somebody behind the curtain. I mean, he's not what the image of the Wizard of Oz is, but at the end of the day, there was that guy behind the curtain. So, I mean, maybe there is something going on here where the Timekeepers are actually somebody completely different, but they just use the image of the Timekeepers, just like that guy used the image of the Wizard of Oz. So we'll see. I mean, that's totally a possibility. That's totally a possibility. All right, next up. Taki75 writes, I think Hiddleston is better at comedy than Hemsworth. It's hard to say, because they are playing two different characters. And it depends on how the characters are supposed to come across. Because listen, I'm going to give you an unpopular take here. There's Miss Minutes. I'm going to give you an unpopular take here, okay? But I don't care. The Ghostbusters all-female movie that came out a few years ago, it's not good, but it is not nearly as bad as some people with agendas like to make it out to be. Like, I remember John Schnepp and I, we saw it together and we came out of the theater and we're both like, it had its moments. It's not great though. I mean, I don't even know if they should have made it, but whatever. It was all right. And it was all right. There are moments that are great, but I'll tell you the thing in that movie that was great was Chris Hemsworth. Chris Hemsworth in that movie is great. I thought he was hilarious in it. I thought he was absolutely hilarious. So I don't know that I'd agree right off the top that Hiddleston is just a better at comedy than Hemsworth. We're really just judging on Hiddleston as Loki, Hemsworth as Thor. A lot depends on the characters and who they're playing and how they're supposed to come across. But I do know that I thought Hemsworth was pretty damn funny in that Ghostbusters movie. He was the best part of the movie, but I thought he was hilarious in that. All right, next up. We've got, that was Tacky. We now move on to Ismail, who writes, one of two. John, I can't believe you actually held in all this Loki excitement for so long. A part of me thinks that the timekeepers aren't completely real. What if Renslayer is actually bad and maybe someone like Kang is in control? Thoughts? Well, I mean, you know the other theory out there that Kang is one of the timekeepers. That's one of the predominant theories that are out there right now. And I haven't seen anything that completely eliminates that from being a possibility yet. We'll see how things go. So that is big. One of them. I don't know. Renova comes across as genuinely caring. Like she cares. I'm not sensing that in her yet at that point. So again, there could be a Wizard of Oz thing where it may not be as it seems. Actually, it's likely it's not exactly as it seems. Yeah, we'll see. But I still think there's some validity to that Kang is one of the timekeepers. Again, I'm not fully bought into that, but I still think that's an interesting theory that makes a lot of dots connect, but we'll see. We'll see. All right. Power is Power writes, one of two. Damn, I thought I had a handle on Loki's mischief. I really thought, oh shit, don't leave that tent. My Peter Tingle didn't go off right away. That one scene made me realize I can't assume anything from this god just because I've known him more than 10 years now, loving the trust issues. Yeah, listen, when that scene started to happen and Loki's like, don't leave the tent. It's a trap. You're going to end up like that guy. I bought into it too at first. At first, I totally bought into it. I didn't realize he was trying to pull something until the same moment Mobius figured it out. Like when he starts talking about, I need to see the timekeepers immediately. It's like, oh, okay, so he's lying. He's lying. But at first, I totally bought into it too. Just like you, I thought, oh, this is a cool character moment for Loki. But it was just him being Loki. It was just Loki being Loki. So I totally bought into that one too, man. I really did. Let's see here. Next up, Taki75 writes, for what it's worth, Sophia Di Martino isn't credited as Lady Loki at the end credits, but as Sylvie, aka Enchantress. Wait a minute. Was she credited as Sylvie? Was she? I didn't see that. Like, are you sure about that? Because if that's true, then that answers that question totally. It totally answers that question. Did it actually say Sophia as Sylvie? Casey McNatt is saying international credits, I think. Marianne Johnson saying, yep. But Ivan Rodriguez is saying no. But Kyle's saying she was credited as such in other countries. Well, if that's the case, then that just kind of answers that. Why would Marvel reveal that? Why would Marvel reveal that? Why would they reveal in the credits what is supposed to be some kind of big mystery? I didn't catch it. I didn't catch it myself. But if that's the case, then that kind of answers. Now, Mega Chris brings up a really good point in the live chat saying maybe it's a placeholder name until a reveal. Maybe. I mean, maybe it's a misdirect, but that does seem really odd because that would answer it right there. It's not Lady Loki. It's Enchantress. I don't know. I'm now going to have to go back and take a look at that and see what it says, but I got a lot of you guys saying, yes, that's what was put in the credits. Okay. And we've got Juan Felipe Lagos saying in the Spanish from Spain, credits, it says Sylvie. Well, there you go. Unless they're trying to do a big misdirect with the credits, it's Enchantress. Okay. We just found something out. All right, we'll say whatever. But Josie is saying, I just watched the end credits. It says the variant. So I got somebody saying in Spain it said Sylvie. I've got other people saying in international markets is Sylvie. Here it's not saying Lady Loki, it's saying the variant. So let's see. Let's see. Maybe they just made a mistake. Maybe they made a gaffe. I don't know. Why did that come up? I'm not sure. All right, next up. Jar of Snokes writes, the musical score for this episode was breathtaking. The synthwave production grabbed my attention from the beginning and perfect conclusion for the ending. I mean, listen, one of the things they really have been killing with these MCU shows on Disney Plus is the music from both score and soundtrack. Score and soundtrack have both been big winners, and they've all been very unique. Like the WandaVision music was very distinct from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier music, which has been very different so far from the music in Loki. So that's one of the things they've really been doing a good job on. All right, next up, we have, where do we have? That was Jar of Snokes. We now have Elif again, who writes, I'd really love to get that variant jacket that Loki wears on this episode. I really hope Disney puts a version of that on their online store. Well, I just pulled out my Time Variance Authority jacket, and I was kind of hoping that it said variant on the back, but it does say TVA. Mine says TVA. You're right. I would love one. I would love one that actually says variant, but I do like the TVA one. All right, next up. Danilo Lima writes, she is credited as Sylvie, who in the comics received the power of a Loki from Loki and was inspired by and took the name of Enchantress. Again, it depends on where you are, apparently, because in some places she's not listed as Sylvie. She's listed as variant. So I guess in some international markets they put her in as Sylvie, which is of course Enchantress. So they may have just made a big gaffe and revealed who she was through the international credits. I can't believe they would make a mistake like that, though. Anyway, maybe it's a misdirect. All right, Tim Platt writes, everyone bad is not completely bad, and everyone good is not completely good. I'm thinking the timekeepers are going to be evil. Well, I mean, a lot of people are saying that, Tim. I mean, a lot of people are thinking either the TVA as a whole is evil or that the timekeepers don't actually exist. And if they do exist, they're evil. And then again, a lot of people think Kang is one of the timekeepers, in which case, at least one of the timekeepers is evil. Not completely evil because nobody's completely evil. But yeah, that's, we'll have to wait and see. All right. Johnny Weiner writes, is it just me, or the song I Need a Hero is everywhere now? First He-Man trailer, then Guardians of the Galaxy, now Loki. It doesn't seem to fit, in my opinion. Well, again, remember, this was not a soundtrack choice. It's that they were in the medieval dinner theater, and the pre-recorded message that starts off the medieval dinner theater says, blah, blah, or will you hold out for a hero? And then that song is meant to play during the dinner theater. It's not a soundtrack choice. Like, it's not something that's just playing in the background, right? So I wouldn't worry about there. But yes, but listen, that's an overused song. It's a great song, but it's an overused song long before the Masters of the Universe or Loki. It was an overused song for a long time, but it is a great song, which is why it's overused. Elif writes, love the set design. It would be cool to stop by the Atlanta Marriott how do you pronounce it? Marquise? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. To check out the interior where they shot a few scenes of this episode. Oh, it probably looks very different. Like, even when they go on location for these things, they will dress it up. They will do set dressing. They will do things like that. So I mean, I don't know, but it would probably look very, very different. But I always do get a kick out of going to places where they shot on location. All right. Tim Platt writes, I want to see the movie about the 2012 Avengers and the aftermath of Loki's disappearance. I don't know. I'm going to guess. Yeah, that probably doesn't exist. What probably happened is that the TVA showed up there and did a reset bomb, or else it would have created a full Nexus event and caused the collapse of the space-time continuum. So that's my guess. My guess is that as soon as Loki disappeared, that the TVA probably showed up there and set off a reset bomb so that the timeline can heal and then happen properly. I don't know. That's my guess. That's my guess. All right. Next up. Fanblaze71 writes, holy crap, the ending to this episode felt like what ending to an okay, let me try this again. Holy crap. The ending to this episode felt like what an ending to an episode before the finale. I just said this a little bit earlier. Felt like the ending of a episode before the finale should be. Did not expect something so big so soon. Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? When you've only got 6 episodes, the likelihood is you're going to have a lot of stuff happening in every episode. And they certainly have some big things, but you're right. This felt like the second to last episode. This felt like the episode that leads into the finale, but it doesn't. We're still in the first half of the show, so it's going to be interesting to see where they go. Anyway, great minds, Fan Blaze, great minds. All right, next up, Marie Seafring writes, and super chats in like $20. Thank you, Marie, for supporting our channel on that level. Loki does 2 things when alone, which I find interesting. 1, he cries when he sees the report about Ragnarok. Yeah, you see the water welling up in his eyes, but glosses over it when speaking to Mobius. 2, he checks to see if Hunter B-15 is alive after she collapses. That's true too. Yeah, because we saw him getting emotional reading about Ragnarok, but then when he's talking to Mobius, and Mobius says, I'm sorry that happened, that Ragnarok thing. And he acts all cool. Oh yeah, terrible tragedy. Blah, blah, blah. But we know he felt it because we saw him feel it. Anyway, after the enchantment leaves her, even though she has mistreated him, Loki always hides his kinder self from everyone, even himself. And you're right, like going right back to episode 1, Marie, where we realize what they've shown us glimpses of through all of the MCU, that Loki is not the tyrant that we see on the surface. They've given us lots of inside looks and hints at that all through the MCU ever since the first Thor movie. But it's in this Loki show that they really flesh that out. And it's really nice seeing it. And I think by the time this show ends, we're going to have a Loki that has a very different understanding of himself by the time we get to an end of it. We already see that in process. So that's been a really cool thing about the show. All right. Thanks for pointing that out, Marie, and very, very well observed. All right. Was that part 1? Yes. Fanblaze71 also writes, I just got my ticket for Black Widow a day early in IMAX and I can't wait. But I realized Black Widow comes out in between Loki episodes 4 and 5. If I'm correct, it seems odd that they would do that. Has nothing to do with anything. Because remember, originally, Black Widow was not supposed to come out between episodes 4 and 5 of Loki, right? That was never supposed to be. And then, all the COVID stuff and the delays and the delays and delays. So honestly, my thinking is, and I could be wrong about this, my thinking is there's absolutely no connection to that. Because if there was a connection and it's supposed to be important, then why wasn't the original release date of Black Widow supposed to happen between episodes 4 and 5 or 5 and 6 of Loki? Why wasn't, if it was really important and significant, why wasn't it like that before? So, and now we might find out that there is significance to it, but again, if there was, why didn't they plan it like that before? Why is it only planned like that now? So personally, I probably don't think there's any connection, but we'll find out. We'll find out. All right, next up. Pedro Faria 2 writes, top 3 MCU scores easily. UAU, it's just beautiful. I'm not quite sure what UAU is yet, but yeah, we were just talking about that, Pedro. I think they've been doing a great job with the music. The music in this has been fantastic, and I think it's going to carry on as well. All right, Marie Seafring also writes, while speaking with one of the Enchanted Store patrons, I enjoyed Loki's comment about understanding why Thor finds him, Loki, so annoying. Yeah, I like that a lot. As he's kind of confronting what he thinks is himself, which obviously isn't himself, but as he's confronting that and saying, no wonder Thor finds it. Like, yeah, I love the line. There's a lot of self-awareness. There's a lot of self-awareness, Marie, with Loki in this show, and that played through here pretty well. All right, next up. Where are we at? J Meister 25 writes, John, I'm commit to this opinion. Here goes. Loki has the best comic book television pilot since Daredevil. I stand by that. Gosh dang it. I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, I thought the pilot was great. Absolutely great. I'm not even sure I think Daredevil was the best comic book show pilot ever. I'm not even 100% sure about that, but they are completely great. I'd have to think about it. Like, again, I don't walk around with these rankings in my head. So, I mean, I don't know, but I can't jump to the conclusion that it is. Yeah, I don't know. But hey, I'm glad you're enjoying it on that level. J Meister. All right, Chris Cutterer writes, I can't be the only one getting a great and powerful Oz vibe from the Time Masters, the Timekeepers. Do they really exist, or is one person behind the curtain? Or is it three people behind the curtain? So yeah, that's been something that's come up a lot, Chris, that the whole analogy of the Wizard of Oz. And you're right. It could be that there absolutely is a boss or bosses, but they may not be these celestial, all-knowing, all-powerful beings. It's just that the Timekeepers are the image. They're the face. They're the logos, if you will, of the Time Variance Authority. But maybe it's something else completely. Who knows? I mean, listen. There's a reason why even Mobius has never seen them and never met them. So, I mean, who knows? We'll see. All right, next up. Pedro also writes, the sacred timeline is a mess now. Yes, it is. What a cliffhanger. What a cerebral episode. A lot of exposition, character, and everything I wanted. Loving this show. I mean, this is a great example. And, WandaVision was also a great example of this. The comic book genre, not just Marvel, but Marvel's the example right now. The comic book genre used to be, it couldn't work unless it was lots of fights and lots of explosions and just all action set pieces. WandaVision, Loki, and don't get me wrong, the big explosions, action set pieces, superpowers, and all, that's all great. That's awesome. Awesome stuff. But the comic book genre has now evolved to a level that it doesn't have to have that stuff to be amazing. WandaVision didn't have an action sequence until the final episode, and I was hooked on that show. Loved it. Loki so far has had there's been some action in Loki, but it's been minimal. And yet 2 episodes in, almost 2 hours in, and it is amazing. And I think that is a great sign and kind of symbolic of the fact that the comic book genre itself is evolving. And that means exciting things for future things coming. I think it means exciting things for future things coming. All right, next up. Black Pretzel writes, over under 50% that Loki will take Mobius jet skiing in the last episode. Again, I don't know if it'll be Loki taking him, but I'm saying more on 70%. I think it's very likely. Also, wanted to say how inspiring your show is. Keep it up. Thank you so much, Black Pretzel. I appreciate that, dude, very much. And again, like I was saying earlier, I think you're bang on the money. I'm going to go over 50%. I'm going to set the line at closer to 70%. I think it is very likely we're going to see Owen Wilson doing some jet skiing by the time that this show wraps up. All right, next up. Dragon 10 writes, my jaw hit the floor at least 10 times. Loki is shaping up to be better than WandaVision. Also, keep up the great work, John. Thank you so much. Now, again, we're only 2 episodes in, so it's still got 4 episodes to go. So I'm not going to make any proclamations right now about where I'm thinking it ranks. All I know is that I'm loving it so far. And if they keep this up, I mean, I don't know, maybe the entire show jumps the shark in episode 5. I mean, who knows? But if they keep this up, it's going to be impressive. Right now, I'm absolutely loving this thing, Dragon 10. All right, Chronophobia, Fear of Time writes, hey, John, damn, I can't believe the ending of episode 2. I thought it would be Loki that wrecked the timeline, but not until the last episode. I'm amazed at the quality of writing in this series. Yeah, me too, man. I mean, because, and by writing, I don't just mean the things that are happening in the show. The dialogue has been amazing. The dialogue has been, particularly the dialogue between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston. The dialogue between Loki and Mobius has been incredible. Like, I literally could watch an entire episode of just the two of them sitting across a desk talking. Talky. I could do an entire hour of that. I really could. That's how good I think the dialogue in this has been, which is a real credit to the writing. So yeah, absolutely Absolutely love it. All right, next up. Marie Seifring writes, do you think the MCU Doctor Strange already knows about the TVA? I don't. I don't think he knows about them. I don't think the Ancient One knew about them. No, look, I won't be surprised if they say that Doctor Strange, who is going to become, and if he's not already, the new Sorcerer Supreme. Oh yeah, he is the Sorcerer Supreme. Anyway, I wouldn't be surprised if they say he already knows, but my guess right now, Marie, and I could be totally wrong, but my guess right now is that he doesn't yet. I don't know that many people in this reality do. So I'm going to guess he doesn't, but I won't be surprised if they say that he does. That's a good question, Marie. It's really good. All right, Chronophobia writes, also wanted to add that the head writer, Michael Waldron, is also writing Doctor Strange and Kevin Feige's Star Wars movie. Super excited to see what he brings. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit last week as well. That, listen, Michael Waldron is not a name that everybody's familiar with, but I have a feeling we're all going to be familiar with it. Now, we're only 2 episodes into Loki, but again, if this holds up, then, and obviously they like him enough. I mean, he's doing Doctor Strange. He's going to do this new Star Wars movie. I mean, it's pretty exciting right now, but listen, we're saying we're excited. If the second half of the Loki series goes to crap, well, then we're not going to be excited anymore. But right now, things look really good. All right, next up. Let's see. Ryan Lohner writes, holding out for a hero is like the Benny Hill show theme. It fits literally any scene. Yeah, you can put I Need a Hero in almost anything. You can literally, I could make a video tomorrow morning of me making breakfast and play I Need a Hero, and it would just kind of fit in. It kind of would. It's a good observation, Ryan. All right, Ryan also writes, I'm very impressed by how they predicted we'd all figure out evil Loki was a woman, so there was no point in holding on to some big reveal at the end. True, but at the same time, that's hindsight, right? We're saying that now, but that's hindsight. They could have very easily had it work out that it wasn't a woman, and we wouldn't even be talking about it. But since it does turn out to be a woman, and listen, not everybody thought it was going to be a woman. A bunch of people did. I'd say the majority of people didn't. So it's easy in hindsight, Ryan. It's easy in hindsight to look back and say that. All right, Marie Seifring writes, I love that Mobius seems to be a genuinely kind person. He says sorry about Asgard and tells the Minutemen to be kind to the people in Alabama. Yeah, listen, that is one of the things that has jumped out to me a lot. Probably one of the reasons why I like the character so much. It's not just because Owen Wilson's doing a great job. And it's not just because the dynamic and the banter between Mobius and Loki is so good. He's legitimately a very empathetic person. He's got empathy. The character has a lot of empathy. But at the same time, he's also no nonsense. It's like, hey, if it doesn't work out, I'll erase him myself. But he does seem to have a lot of empathy, and I like it a lot. I like the way the character plays. I'm loving this character. I really, really am. All right. Silver Surfroy writes, I get the feeling Mobius is getting Loki to do exactly what he needs to start the Multiverse of Madness war that eventually creates the TVA. So you're going completely the opposite direction as Marie. You think he's actually the villain. You think he's the one behind all this. That he's the one trying to get all this thing going. I don't know. I mean, it's a common trope to make the guy that you think is a good guy turns out to actually be the evil guy. So, I mean, it wouldn't be outside of the realm of possibility that happens. But I don't know. Even in the scenes away from Loki, he seems legitimately authentic. But again, we're only 2 episodes in. Let's see where they go. All right. Next up, Levi R. writes, Loki is my favorite Disney Plus show. I'm so glad they did a TV show instead of a movie. You can tell so much more in a 6-hour show than a 2-hour movie. Yeah, you would just be telling a different story. Look, to me, movies are better than shows. I know that a lot of you guys will disagree with that, and that's fine. But there's something about, and this is why movies are harder to make than TV shows. Because with a movie, you need as a storyteller and this is why it's hard to make a great movie. You have to come up with your characters, introduce them, set the scenario, introduce the conflict, flesh out the conflict, bring it to resolution, and you got to all do it within 2 to 2.5 hours. There's something incredibly satisfying about that experience. There's something very satisfying about that experience, and it takes an incredible amount of skill to do that in that one 90 to 180 minute time frame. It takes an incredible amount of skill to do it, but when you do it, the experience is amazing. That's why I always prefer movies. But just because I prefer, that doesn't mean I don't think TV shows are amazing and can be done great, and Loki has been fantastic. So obviously, if they had done Loki as a movie, it just would have been a different story. For all we know, it would have been better. But they're telling this story, and this story suits a longer, more fleshed out time, 6 hours of screen time as opposed to 2.5. So it just would have been different. But I'm still a guy that I prefer the art of filmmaking over television. And I think that's why I've always believed, and I still believe completely, it takes more skill to make a great movie than it does to make a great TV show. Because think of this, and I know we're getting sidetracked a little bit. Here. But, you look at some shows, take a show like The Wire, for example. A lot of TV files think The Wire might be the greatest show of all time. But all the people who told me that I should watch The Wire years ago, because I had never watched it before, up to a few years ago, would say, now you got to kind of get through, the first few episodes of the first season. You got to just kind of get through the first season. You don't have that luxury making a movie. Making a movie, you can't have 2 or 3 week episodes. You've got 2 hours. That's it. I mean, you've got the luxury. If you're making a TV show, we can drag this out over 10 episodes. We can drag this out over 4 seasons, whatever. You don't have that when you're making a movie. That's why I think I have even more respect. I have a huge amount of respect for people who make great TV, but I have even more respect for people who make great movies. It's just a more difficult art. And being more difficult when it hits, it's all the more satisfying. But that's just kind of my take on it. Sorry, we got a little bit sidetracked there. Let's keep going here. Next up, Levi also writes, is the TVA an illusion by Kang? And it is actually located in the quantum realm, in which that's why magic doesn't work, and they can travel to any location in time. Also, why the tech is so advanced. Maybe. I mean, that does connect dots. I don't think this is in the quantum realm, but if it was, for argument's sake, Levi, if it was, it does connect certain narrative dots. By the way, I've never seen anybody, where in the MCU has it said that magic doesn't work in the quantum realm? I don't remember seeing anybody say that before. I could be mistaken, but I don't think it's ever been said that that it works, that magic doesn't work within the quantum realm. I don't recall ever seeing that. Maybe yes, maybe no, whatever, we'll see. But anyway, interesting theory. Let's see where they go with it. All right, Sam Fisher writes, I really like how people in this episode, both Loki and Mobius, had epiphanies. Loki with the apocalypse and Mobius making the connection to the gum. Yeah, that's true. I mean, what I really like is that Loki is not overtaking the show. You know what I mean? He's not taking it over. And by the show, I don't mean the show Loki. I mean the operation, the show. Loki hasn't completely taken over. It's not like, oh, poor Mobius was sitting there and was just helpless until Loki comes along. Or that Mobius is the expert and just Loki just like, no. They're both having these epiphanies. They are both figuring out pieces of the puzzle that they're putting together. And I like that they're doing that. And I think that's a really good observation, Sam. All right, next up. Unjustified Gaming writes, 1. Hey, John, Elijah here. Hello, Elijah. I was right with my previous theory about female Loki being the variant and Loki going with her to find out info in the TVA is holding. Again, that second part is not necessarily true. And by the way, I don't think it is Lady Loki, but that's just me. Where do you personally believe the show will go next? I find it very interesting that one of the branches created was on Ego, the Living Planet. Where does it go next? Okay, so it's very hard to say with these MCU shows. They are proving to be very, very difficult to predict, like where things are heading, right? They're proving very, very difficult to predict. I would say this. My guess is that ultimately in the next episode, we are going to find out what Enchantress's, if it is Enchantress, what Enchantress's actual end goal here is. What is her actual end goal? What's the end game? And I think this is where we're going to find that out. And I think Loki is going to have his pivotal moment in deciding, do I go along with the evil scheme and help this person out, or am I actually going to try to do what's right? And I think a lot of that's going to happen in episode 3, which will leave 3 more episodes to really flesh that out. So I don't know. But again, after WandaVision and Falcon the Winter Soldier, I'm almost given up trying to guess where this is all going. I'm almost giving up on where it's all going, man. I really am. But let's see. Let's see what they do. All right. Thanks for writing that in, dude. Next up, Ryan Lohner writes, if I was writing this show, I would have been way too tempted to have one Loki say to the other, I've always wanted to work with you. I mean, I think a lot of people are in the same boat, man. It would have been a pretty funny line. Maybe a little too predictable, but I probably would have done the same thing, Ryan. To be honest, I think you and I both would have done the same thing. All right, J Meister 25 writes, seeing Roxcart in Loki, something that Elektra warned Daredevil about in Daredevil Season 2. I don't remember that. Regarding Roxxon selling mac and cheese was so rewarding. I don't remember that. I got to go back now and look at that again. I have no recollection. Did you guys in the live chat, did you guys recognize what J Meister's talking about? Because I totally didn't. When they mentioned the name of the company, I didn't recognize it at all. I still don't, to be honest with you. Maybe every one of you guys, all of you did, and you all know exactly what it was they were talking about here. But I don't recall that. Anyway, all right. Thanks for that, J Meister. Next up, Unjustified Gaming writes, there was a part 3. Look at that. Okay. Also, this episode was beautiful, from the Roxcart environment to Pompeii. The Pompeii thing was great. And the TVA Citadel. The locations were grand and add dimension to tone. I agree. It totally does when you can create great environments. And let's be honest, a lot of these environments are on TV budgets. This is clearly not movie budget stuff, granted, but still, they have been able to make it feel very grand in scope. Because one of the things I really don't like about like any stories in movies or TV that are supposed to have these huge repercussions and implications, it just feels very limited and very localized. This is managing to make it feel very grand in scope, even though they're clearly doing it on a very good TV budget, but a TV budget nonetheless. And they've done a really good job of that. So I agree with you, Unjust. All right. Let's see. Southtown Paint Apps in the live chat saying Roxxon was also in Iron Man 3. See, I don't even remember that. I got to look it up. I had no knowledge of that. I love learning this stuff from you guys. Thanks for throwing that in there, man. All right. Next up, Calvin Severo Pano writes, John, I loved every MCU Disney Plus. Loki is great. But today's episode, for the first time, I believed the 2 sets in the... Let me try this again. Loki is great. But today's episode, for the first time, I believe the 2 sets in the past, Pompeii and Wisconsin, okay, looked a little cheap. The first one, Wisconsin, at first I believed it was a LARP in present day time. Well, I don't know. It felt like a LARP thing. It totally felt like a Renaissance fair to me. I don't know. I thought that one looked okay. Now, Pompeii, yes, it definitely felt smaller, right? Again, they're trying to make it feel grand, but let's face it. They don't have the budget to actually make a full sprawling city scene with hundreds of extras and all this kind of stuff. They were doing it on a TV budget. But I thought for a TV budget, it was pretty well done. If it was a movie and I was in a theater, I'd probably go, yeah, that looked kind of cheap. But for a TV thing, I thought it was actually pretty well done. It's just my take on it. It's just my take. All right, next up. Let's see here. Tom Grocott writes, How many appearances does the Tesseract have left in its contract? After this episode, I think the show will affect the MCU for a long time to come. Well, listen, that's one of the brilliant things about the MCU. We constantly find out that an event in Thor 2: The Dark World, or we find out an event in, Avengers: Age of Ultron, something we don't even have to think about anymore, the repercussions of those events come back into play later on. It's like if something major happens, it's not like, well, that movie's over now, so we never have to talk about it again. Things that would have major repercussions end up having major repercussions in the MCU. And maybe it takes 3 or 4 or 5 years for it to come full circle, but it comes. So I have no doubt that by the time this show ends, depending on how it ends, we're going to see that this Loki show is going to have repercussions throughout the MCU to one degree or another, but we'll see how they end the show. All right. Let's see. That was a Tom. Unjust. Hey, guys, just a little hint. If you're going to put in a multi-part thing, don't just put 1, 2, 3, and 4. Put 1 of 3, so I know that there's another one coming. Just throwing that out there. All right. Unjustified Gaming says, for the overall respective scenes, the score is beautiful, especially in the episode climax in Rock's cart. Loki soiling his salad was perfect. It was. And again, a lot of people have been mentioning the whole idea about the score and the music. It has been very well done. Again, the entire Disney Plus run of the MCU so far, WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, Loki now, has done a great job with the music. You know what the funny thing about that is? And I know some of you will disagree with me, and that's fine. But what's funny about that is that for a long time, I've truly believed that score is one of the few things that I believe the DCEU has done better than the MCU. I've really, now obviously the MCU overall, it's obviously been better, but the score is one of those elements that I really felt for a lot of years that the DCEU just consistently did better than the MCU. And I stand by that. I still do. I mean, it's all subjective, of course, but I personally really think that. But they have really stepped it up lately, particularly in these MCU shows. So yeah, I really think they've done a great job with that. Let's see. Wait, somebody's saying I missed some questions. I don't think I missed any questions. Let me just run back here. We did Tom's question of how many appearances does the Tesseract have. We did that one. Calvin. Okay, where are we at here? We are at, so Unjustified. So let me see here. Unjust did it, did Sam's, did Levi's, did Silver's, did Marie's, did Ryan's, did Chronophobia, did Dragon 10, did Black Pretzel, did J Meister, did Marie, did Fanblaze 71, did Tim, did Elif, did Johnny Weiner, did we did Danilo? She's correct. Yeah, we did Danilo. We did. Sorry, guys. I just saw some people in the live chat saying I missed some questions, but I don't think I missed any. And now I've got some of you in the live chat, Illimax, saying, John, you didn't miss anything. Okay, good. Because you never know. Because every once in a while, this thing here will do a jump, and I don't notice that it does a jump, and it's possible I could miss some questions, and I want to make sure we don't. But anyway, okay. So yes, we're all caught up. Good. Next up, A-Rod 2006 writes, based on the ground rules set up in episode 2 about where Lady Loki is going in time, and again, I don't think it's Lady Loki, could we see the end of the dinosaurs 2+ million years ago? Why not? I mean, theoretically, but the problem is, like, remember, one of the reasons the real Loki said that the variant may be hiding in that time frame is because in that department store, they'll have all the food, all the supplies, everything they need is right there. If you go back to the beginning of the dinosaurs, there's really nothing there for the variant, right? That doesn't create a good base of operations. So, I mean, with a time traveling show, we could see the end of the dinosaurs. But again, the whole reasoning they said about why in that department store was perfect, all of that would be missing from, the millions of years ago with the loss of the dinosaurs. So I'm going to guess no, A-Rod. It's a good theory, but I'm going to guess no because They need supplies, and it's not a good base of operations. All right. J Meister 25 writes, so Vormir was threatened here in episode 2. What? Vormir was threatened here in episode 2. If that planet is eradicated, the Prime Universe loses a pillar of its own existence, i.e. the Soul Stone. I don't know what it is we're talking about. I'm not quite sure what it is you're mentioning here. What do you mean Vormir was threatened in episode 2? Did I miss something? Did I miss something? Watts is saying, in the live chat, saying it was one of the time bomb locations. Was it? I don't remember. Yeah. So Jackoff is also saying it. Others people saying it was one of the locations of the time bomb. I didn't notice that. See, I've watched the episode a couple of times now, and I never even noticed that. Went right over my head. Thank God I got you guys. Didn't even notice that. Now I got to go back and watch it again. Sorry, I'm pulling out my my cold, refreshing Zevia Cola. Zevia, sponsor me, you sons of bitches. All right, so I didn't even notice that. But yeah, listen, it's not just Vormir that's going to be. I mean, I think those bombs went a lot of places to cause a lot of damage. So whether that one's going to come into play specifically, I don't know, but I think that's fast. I didn't even realize that. See, now I'm going to enjoy Loki even more because you guys told me that bit of information that totally went over my head. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. All right. Let's see here. Brian Crozen writes, loving Loki and the chemistry between Loki and Mobius, totally agree, is magic. But am I the only one that's getting a white collar vibe to this show? Can't wait for season 3, for episode 3. Is White Collar a show? Like, I just can't. Is that what you mean by that? Is there a show called White Collar? If so, I think there's a show called I don't know. If there is a show called White Collar, I never saw it. And so if that's what you mean, it has a white collar vibe. A bunch of you guys say, yes, it's on the USA Network. Okay, I thought I remember hearing about, okay, so there's a show called White Collar. I've never seen it, so I can't relate to the analogy there. But again, going back to what you're saying, yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Danielle, Jagoff, Ivan, Arun, everybody writing in. Yes, it is a show. I've never seen it, so I can't relate to the analogy. But you're absolutely right, man. The chemistry and dialogue between Loki and Mobius has been fantastic. I hope that maintains as being one of the big pillars of this show as we go through 4 more episodes. All right, Peter Cunnington writes, it's Lady Loki, he's gender fluid. I don't think that means much. And again, like I said, some international markets already list the actress as playing Sylvie, which is of course Enchantress. So I don't believe it's Lady Loki. But again, we will find out. Only got 4 more episodes to go. Animated Effigy writes, female Loki might be the hero restoring free will and the multiverse. TVA to me represents the banality of evil. Every reset kills more than a snap. Those hints of more than one Mobius were subtle. I don't think a reset kills more than the snap. Like it seems like the resets are very, very localized. Like they only affect a certain radius. Right? So I think some resets don't kill anybody. Maybe some resets just have to reset, certain things that are still there. And maybe some do take out a bunch of people. I don't know. The important part is that I still think we need a lot more information. And we're going to get more information as Loki progresses. And then we'll have some more definitive answers, I think. All right, next up. CGM writes. So going back to that first part there, that Loki. So whether it's Enchantress or female Loki or somebody else entirely, it could be that they're actually like a Robin Hood. That ultimately they're trying to do something good, right? It's the same kind of thing that happened in Solo. Remember that, it turns out that girl pirate was actually a freedom fighter and a hero, not some vile pirate, right? maybe that's the same thing with this variant. Maybe the variant is actually a Robin Hood-like hero. It's a possibility, Animated Effigy. Really, let's see where they go. I mean, I'm thinking it's still, I'm thinking that's still the antagonist, but maybe it's a Robin Hood character. We'll see. CGM Show writes, to be fair, there was a bunch of different variant Lokis that look drastically different than normal Loki. A Loki that is a woman isn't a leap. No, it is a big leap. That's a huge leap. Massive, massive, massive leap. Because if in the sacred timeline, Loki, as Thor calls him brother, Loki is a guy, then being born female, being assigned a female gender at birth, that would be in and of itself immediately a variant. And remember, all those other Lokis we saw were variants. So the Loki with the Tour de France thing, variant. That's not the way it's supposed to be. That's not the way it's supposed to happen. So I don't know. It might be a stretch, but then again, CGM, you may be 100% right. We have 4 more episodes to go, and they may explain things in such a way that does go that way. All right. Next up, K Major writes, I need a Mobius and Agent Woo Asian Jim show. Hey, listen, bring back Asian Jim as soon as possible. Bring him back. Agent Woo was great. I love that character. I want to see that. I still like the idea. I can't remember was it Darcy? Is that the name of the character? Jane's assistant who was in WandaVision. I still love the idea of an X-Files style show with Woo and Darcy. That I still want that X-Files show. I think that would be great. Anyway, thanks for that, K Major. Next up, the Uzi 408 writes, does a 6-hour Loki show cost more than a 2-hour Loki movie? I think probably about the same. My guess would probably be about the same. I think if they were to do a 2-hour Loki movie, you're probably talking about, I don't know, my guess today, you're probably looking at $160 to $180 million for a 2-hour movie, which would probably work out to be like 80. So if you look at a 2-hour movie and say, okay, how does that break down per hour? You're probably looking at like $80 to $100 million per hour. Whereas the TV show, it's breaking down to about 15 to 25 million per hour, right? So it's like a third. They have like a third of the budget that the movies do, if you break it up on a per hour basis. So from what, and my information could be wrong, but I think I heard that Loki is costing anywhere between 15 to $25 million per episode, depending on the episode. So let's split the difference and call it 20 million. So roughly 20 million per hour. Whereas if they were doing the movie, your minimum $160 million budget. So you're probably talking $80 million per hour. So yeah, they're spending a lot of money on these TV shows, a lot of money, but it's still only a fraction of what they'd be spending on it on a per hour basis if it were a feature film. So that's why Pompeii doesn't feel like it would have been if it was done in a movie, or why Wisconsin maybe doesn't feel as grand or as fleshed out as maybe it could have been if it was in a movie, because on a per hour basis, they're literally working with a budget that's 25% of the size that a feature film one would be. But anyway, all right, let's move on here. Next up, Jeff Jones writes, love this show. So do I, my friend, but I am just not feeling the Lady Loki. Again, I don't think it is Lady Loki. Don't get me wrong. The actress is great. It's just something feels completely off. Am I alone in this? Well, I mean, here's the thing, Jeff. Keep in mind, we literally got 5 minutes of them. And I don't know. I didn't time it. Maybe it's even less. We literally only got a couple of minutes of them. We haven't had any chance to actually get to know whoever this character is, and what, let them get fleshed out, understand what makes them tick, to use Mobius's terminology. So, I mean, I don't rush to make any decisions on a character that has literally just been on screen for a couple of minutes. let's give it a little bit of, and who knows, maybe after the next episode, we'll all think there's something wrong with this character. But I would say give it one more episode so we actually get a chance to actually have this character on screen and actually flesh out a little bit, instead of rushing to a conclusion on a character that's been on camera for like maybe 4 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe less. So let's see where they go with that. All right. Next up, we've got Nathan Trujillo, who writes, I think Lady Loki is trying to draw the timekeepers out from wherever they're hiding or force the TVA to admit what they're really about. Again, I think you're onto something there in a way. She's not trying to take over the TVA. There's something else at play here. And you know what? I have a feeling, I have no real theory. I have a feeling, though, that we're going to find out what it is in episode 3. And when we do find out what it is, it's going to be something that none of us were expecting. I honestly think it's going to end up being something that none of us were expecting. Whether that's true or not, we'll find out. We'll find out soon enough. All right, next up. Unjustified gaming rights. I didn't think anyone was going to mention the duplication comment. I have this inclination that Loki duplicated himself when they stepped in Rock's cart. Maybe, but remember, even the duplication can only do so much. Like, Loki can't physically have two Lokis in two different locations doing different things, right? Loki's got to be around for that to happen. If I understood the power right, and maybe I didn't, but if I understood the power right, so I'm not sure that you can have an illusion Loki, a duplicate Loki, off at another place in time through the portal, and then another Loki still there in the mall. I don't think his power works that way. Now, I could be mistaken. We'll have to see. All right. Next up. Is it Crashing Coyote saying, yes, he can, John. He did that in Ragnarok. Not really. Not really. That was just a projection. Remember? Like, so that had no physical, that thing in Ragnarok was only a projection. Because as soon as you try to touch it, it just goes right through him, right? There is no physicality to him. So if he duplicated, and the thing we saw talking to the quote unquote Lady Loki, he couldn't have been kicked. He couldn't have been hit. So it's a different thing than what we saw in Ragnarok. Anyway, that's just kind of my thoughts on that. All right, next up. Where are we at? Oh, yeah, that was unjustified. Next up, Chris Mason writes, do you think we're going to see any big characters that have already been in movies inside this series? I don't think so. I mean, look, one of the things that they have done really well, and I'm glad they're doing this, is they are very much isolating the shows. WandaVision is not Wanda and Doctor Strange. Yeah, a lot of people saying, Doctor Strange is going to show up. Yay, Doctor Strange is going to be there. Well, he didn't. And Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it's like, oh, they're going to be in New York. Spider-Man's going to show up. Spidey, yay, Spider-Man's going to be there. No, he didn't. It's not called Falcon and Winter Soldier and Spider-Man. It's Falcon and Winter Soldier. And what they've done a very good job of is really isolate. This is their story. WandaVision was Wanda and Vision's story. Falcon and the Winter Soldier is, Sam and Bucky's story. And Loki is Loki's story. Now, look, am I going to be completely shocked if Thor shows up, even for a moment? I wouldn't be shocked. It's his brother. Those Thor and Loki are, forever connected. So I wouldn't be shocked, but I'm not expecting it. I'm certainly not expecting some out of left field character to show up. So my guess, just a guess, my guess is no, we're not going to have a big major MCU character show up in the Loki show. Again, it is the MCU, so you never know, but I'm going to guess, I'm going to stick with that guess that I don't think that's going to happen. All right, Sean writes, one thing that has really stood out is the music. Absolutely. We've been talking about that a bunch today. For example, the score that plays when the Haven Hill sign is destroyed gives me goosebumps every time. That was good. And again, I don't think I've heard anybody else point that part out. I have to go back and remember it again, but again, I really feel overall that the MCU in the last couple of years have really been stepping up the music part, because again, I've always felt that that was something that they trailed behind the DCEU on. And particularly in the Disney Plus shows, and they've absolutely been carrying that through with Loki. So I agree with you there on that one, Sean. Thanks for writing that in, dude. Next up, Donald Thomas just sends in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you, Donald. I appreciate that, man, very much. All right, Eric Wells writes, one of two. It's not one start point that starts the multiverse of madness. The Snap, WandaVision, Loki, and future events leading up to Doctor Strange 2. Any of these could start it. Absolutely. On their own, each of these events compounds on the multiverse problem, and well, Doctor Strange has some work to do. I'm excited to be on this ride with you. And yeah, and again, I want us to be careful. And it is a hell of a ride, Eric. It's a hell of a ride so far. But let's not get carried away. Like, as of right now, it seems like, at least the way Loki has started, the timeline is totally secure, and Loki is a variant, and they're trying to deal with that variance. And of course, they've got this Enchantress, Lady Loki, whoever that is, running around as well. But it seems like the Time Variance Authority thinks everything's kind of properly under control. That variants happen, and they fix them, and everything's fine. But clearly, the name of the Doctor Strange 2 movie is literally Multiverse of Madness. So clearly things are about to go bonkers. Now, whether that happens here in Loki or upcoming, maybe Loki is the matchstick that kind of sets everything off in the MCU with I mean, who knows? Who knows? I think we'll get more information as we go. But you're right, Eric. It has already been a great ride, and I cannot wait to see where we are going to go. All right, next up. We've got Venkat Ram writes, this most likely isn't true, but what if Renslayer and Mobius are two of the timekeepers and the third is Kang? Most likely not, but it would be cool. Yeah, that it can't be, because remember, Mobius is talking to Renova and he says, you know, how are the timekeepers? Like, he doesn't know them. He said to look, I've never seen them. So if he and Renova were timekeepers, why would he say, how are the timekeepers? You know what I mean? So yeah, probably not. Maybe Renova is one of the timekeepers. Maybe there's a reason she's like one of the only ones who've seen the timekeepers. Maybe she's the Wizard of Oz person behind behind the curtain. Maybe that's her. That's a possibility. It's totally a possibility. So yeah. All right. Hey guys, listen. I'm gonna take one more question. And then we're going to take a short 5-minute break. I've been going for about an hour and a half already on top of the 2-hour show I did this morning. So my throat, I'm starting to feel it a bit in the throat. So we're going to take one more question, then we're going to take a 5-minute break. I'm going to just relax the voice for a minute, go get some ice, all that sort of thing. Okay. Jim Riley writes, if there is only one timeline, then what happens to the timeline where Thanos from 2014 time travelers in Endgame and dies? He's not there to cause Infinity War. Thanks, John. Hope you're doing well. It's a plot hole. That's a plot hole. One of several plot holes that the writers of Endgame admitted that they had several plot holes in their story. That's one of them. Because if everything the Avengers did was what they were supposed to do, then that means Thanos, who they did it with, was not a variant. So he would have been missing in time in that thing. So it's a plot hole to the story. And listen, I hesitate to rush to call it a plot hole when we still have 4 more episodes of Loki to go, and there could be a lot more explanation that's given about the nature of the sacred timeline, how it works, what is a variant, what isn't. There's still 4 episodes to go where a lot of that could be explained. So I hesitate to jump to the conclusion that's a plot hole. I'll say for now, it certainly looks like a plot hole. But, you know, we'll see where they go. It's just one of those things you just kind of have to accept and go, okay, that's fine. We'll move on from there. I mean, it happened a bunch in Endgame. Probably a little bit of it is at play here too. Okay, listen. We're now up to Santez. We're going to take Santez, but I just want to say this thing, guy. We're not going to be going too much awful longer. So what I am going to suggest is that I'm going to give you guys up until the end of the break. If you guys want to send in another thought, comment, or question, and thank you to all of you who've sent in all these ones already, but if you still want to send in a thought, comment, theory, or question, you've got until the end of the break. Because at the end of the break, I'm going to turn off the super chat feature so I can make sure we get through all of the questions that you guys have sent in before the end of this video, okay? So you've got until the end of the break, and that's what we're going to do right now. So this is a great time for you guys to run, grab something to eat or drink, talk amongst yourselves, use the bathroom. God, come to think of it, I'll probably do that myself. Give me about 5 minutes, guys, and then we will be right back. Don't go anywhere. All right, everybody, and we are back. Thank you for your patience and indulgence. I took a little bit of a break there. Let's now keep on going. and get through the rest of your theories, comments, observations, questions, everything. Let's keep on going here, talking about Loki episode 2. All right, Santos Henderson writes, I guessed exactly how this episode would end last night while in the shower by drawing out the timeline in the shower. Winner, winner, Catwoman for dinner. A little bit of a Batman and Harley Quinn joke there. I see what you did there, Santos. I see what you did. All right, Sir Chadamus writes, Lady Loki bombed the sacred timeline. Locations included Asgard, New York, Vormir, Ego, Sakaar, etc., trying to reset pre-endgame events. It depends. Remember, at least my understanding is these reset charges are limited. I don't know how big of an area of effect that they have, but everything in the show so far has shown that the area that they actually affect is fairly limited. So I don't know. I don't know if it has to do with trying to reset things to pre-endgame or if there's a bigger picture involved. It might be that they were just including names of places that we will instantly know and recognize. It's possible, but we'll see where they go with that, Sir Chadamus. All right, next up, we've got True Sensibility writes, maybe this is a long shot, but for some reason, I feel like the kid in the first episode is or was Loki. I don't think it's Loki, but I do think it was a plant. I think Enchantress, Lady Loki, whoever that is, wanted Mobius to find that kablooey gum. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe it literally was just some detective work. A kid, maybe that was just dropped. The kid found it, whatever. Maybe that's a possibility. But right now I'm suspecting that kablooey was left behind on purpose for that kid to find. And then by extension, Mobius would discover it as well. So that's my guess right now. I don't know. See, Mega Dude Man in the live chat is saying he believes things. She wanted that kablooey to be found. Yeah, I think did too. I think they wanted ultimately to, but why? We don't know yet. We will find out. All right. Who was that? That was True Sensibility. Next up is Nipondering writes, love the opening shots for all the episodes. The first looked like an alien world, Mongolia. The second looked like a medieval village. Nope. Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Yeah, I did. Listen, I'm not going to lie to you. I thought that was funny. I thought it was funny the way they did it at a Renaissance fair. That was pretty cool. But by the way, nobody has mentioned this line, right? Remember when the Minutemen showed up at the Renaissance fair? And there was that one woman who said, excuse me, you're not dressed right. Then everybody missed a line she said right at a little bit later. Like she's like saying, come on, you guys aren't dressed right. And then the Minutemen talk amongst themselves, and then they move on. And then you just hear the lady say, it was a quick throwaway line. You missed it if you weren't paying attention. She goes, some of us need this. I thought that was hilarious. I thought that one little line of that lady saying, some of us need this. I thought that was hilarious. I laughed out loud. I've watched the episode like 3 times. Every time I watched it, I laughed out loud. I thought that line was great. Okay. Anyway, some of us need this. Next up. Where are we at? We are at Telephone Productions writes, hey, John, Telephone here. I'm willing to bet there are no active timekeepers and will eventually find out someone else is in charge. Thoughts? Well, that goes right back to the whole, Wizard of Oz scenario. That it's not what you think. And there's actually somebody else behind the curtain. And it's just giving out the image of the timekeepers to keep everything in line. It's a very strong possibility. Look, there's a reason that nobody has seen the timekeepers other than Ravonna. Even Mobius has never seen them or met them. I mean, to me, that makes it pretty obvious there's something going on. Or maybe they are purposefully making it seem really shifty, only that it so can surprise us later on that, I don't know, maybe at the end in the final episode, Loki and Mobius walk through some doors and there are the timekeepers. I don't know. And maybe they're just throwing us off with that. I don't know. But right now, I kind of agree with the Telephone. I think there's something else going on behind the scenes. We'll find out where it is. All right. Next up, we got Mark D who writes, I think they may have given us the answer in the first episode. The timekeepers are part of the illusion, the appearance of control. Again, right back to that whole the whole Wizard of Oz thing, right? That the timekeepers are a great image. An image of the all-seeing and the all-knowing, when really it's a much simpler thing than that. Is that the case? A lot of people like you, Mark, are writing in that theory. I think you could be on the mark there. Again, who knows? One of the things Kevin Feige and his team over at the MCU, Mark, have really done well, especially in these shows, is they, especially in WandaVision, they let us believe we have figured something out, but then we later on find out that that's what they wanted us to think, so they could totally turn it around, right? So maybe they're making it obvious that the timekeepers aren't actually real, only so they can hit us across the face in episode 5 or 6 of like, holy shit, they are real. You know what I mean? And so it comes, again, I don't know. It's just that you've learned with these Disney Plus MCU shows, you can't take anything for granted yet. But yeah, for now, I agree with you though. There's clearly, to me, it seems like something else is going on with the timekeepers. We'll find out soon enough. All right, Daniel Luna writes, this episode moved on by so fast. I actually got upset when it ended. Give me more. Also, do why do the TVA have training videos? Do they often recruit new agents? I thought they were quote unquote made. Maybe. Listen, we've already seen in this series alone, Minutemen die, right? Even though they're made, that doesn't, if they are made, let's go on that assumption for a second that they are made. That doesn't mean they're immortal. Mobius looks like he's in his mid-50s, right? He's been doing it for a while. We've already seen Minutemen die. Does the TVA just now not, are they always now for the rest of eternity going to be short-handed with Minutemen? Or do they create new ones or recruit new people? Just because they made the TVA, that doesn't necessarily preclude the possibility that they also recruit. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities there. I mean, I like that you caught that, but I think there are still other possibilities there for why the training videos would exist. So I think there are a lot of potential options actually. So let's see where they go with that. Anyway, but it's a good catch, Daniel. It's a good catch. All right, next up. Casey McNatt writes, let's not forget that WandaVision credits did say that Evan Peters was the Quicksilver from the Fox universe. So I don't know if we should take what they say in international credits seriously. Okay, I can't remember exactly the circumstances of that. I just remember, Casey, when that was brought up, I disputed that. Right? Because I remember when that thing, when we were having this argument, and I was telling everybody, Evan Peters is not Quicksilver from the X-Men universe. He's not that. And then that one translation from the one foreign credits thing. And if you watched me at that time, one of the things I said was that was probably just descriptive, right? It was probably just something that Kevin Feige didn't even oversee. It was probably just closed captioning, and it was probably just put in to be descriptive. That's what it was. It was closed captioning. I don't think it was credits. It was closed captioning that did it. It's all groovy. Just said that themselves, and so did Dio in the thing. Yeah, it wasn't credits. It was screen capture. It was the closed captioning credits, or the closed captioning that said it. And I remember saying at the time, I think that's just the closed captioning trying to be descriptive, because that's what it was intending to have us think about at the moment and at the time. But I still never believed he was actually Quicksilver from the Fox universe, and sure enough, he wasn't. But this is completely different. Something actually in the credits that literally call them Sylvie. Like that's, I don't know. Again, maybe that in and of itself is just meant to be a misdirect. Maybe that's meant to be a misdirect, but it is a very different situation from something being in the credits versus something that was thrown in closed captioning meant to be descriptive. So again, two different things, but we'll see. Maybe even the credits themselves are meant to be misdirects. All right. Let's see. Mal3D writes, Hey, John, just wanted to write and say hi, dude. Thank you so much, Mal. I appreciate that. Don't catch a show live often, so I had to write in. Love this episode 2 of Loki. I loved it too. And thank you so much, man, for writing in and supporting us that way, man. I appreciate that very much. And yes, that's why now you guys know why I've been saying, guys, I cannot wait for you to see episode 2 because I liked it even more than episode 1. I cannot wait for episode 3 now. All right. Thanks for writing in, Mal. I appreciate that. All right. Mal also writes in and sends in like a $20 super chat. Thank you, Mal. And Mal writes, are you doing pregame shows? Probably meant shows. Are you doing pregame shows this time around? Yes. Starting next week. Now, I ultimately decided, because many of you guys recommended to me, and I decided you were right, to not do a pregame show for episode 2. I was originally going to do a pregame show for episode 2, but then a number of you guys wrote into me. I listened to you guys. A number of you guys wrote into me and said, here's the problem, John. You've already seen episode 2, and the pregame show is supposed to all be about speculating about the upcoming episode. And since you've already seen it, the only thing you're going to be able to say to every single question is, I can't answer that. I can't answer that. I can neither confirm nor deny that. I can neither confirm nor deny that. Like, that's all I'd be able to say. And I thought about it and I'm like, yeah, you guys are right. So we didn't do a pregame show this week, but yes, starting this coming Tuesday, we are going to be game day. We're going to be getting back to game day and doing the pregame shows. I mean, I don't even know what gave me the idea to do the pregame shows for WandaVision in the first place. All I know is that I have a hell of a lot of fun doing the pregame shows. The pregame shows are fun because there's an extra layer. Listen, I love getting together on the day after the shows to do the spoiler discussions. I mean, this is fun. But there's an extra layer of fun talking about what we're about to watch in just a couple of hours. You know what I mean? And I had so much fun doing the pregame shows. I cannot wait to do it. So we'll have 4 pregame shows for Loki. Tuesdays are the new game days, and I'm really excited about it. So yes, they will be back. All right. Next up, we've got... that was Mal. Next up, and again, thanks for writing that in, Mal. Appreciate it. Pablo Zaniga writes, just checked. After the main credits are done, you see dubbed credits. Under Spanish, credits says Sylvie. All other credits, she is credited as the variant. That's interesting. But you see, Sylvie, this is why it's still different from that Quicksilver thing. Because the Quicksilver thing, that's just describing what people would recognize and know. Quicksilver from the Fox universe. That's how you describe seeing that. Why would you put Sylvie? Like, what's the possible thing of putting Sylvie in there? So I don't know if they're purposely leaving us breadcrumbs to know. I don't know if that's one that's kind of slipped under the radar and oopsie, or maybe it's a misdirect. So we'll have to see. Thanks for following up on that, Pablo. Appreciate that. All right, next up. Venkant Ram writes, are all the Loki versions shown before the Wisconsin scene from the same sacred timeline? If so, why do they look different? If not, then is the sacred timeline a lie? No, they were all variants and they were all eliminated. They were all variants. Loki was not supposed to win the Tour de France. Variant eliminated. Whatever that hulked out one was, that's not what Loki's supposed to be. Variant. Eliminated. So, yeah, that's the key. All of those were variants, and therefore they were all probably eliminated. Let's see. Let's move on here. Where are we at? That was Venkat. Moon 7 Willow writes, my headcanon is that, like the shawarma post-credit scene from Avengers, is what happened after Loki escaped. Let me try this again. My headcanon is that, like the shawarma post-credits scene from Avengers, is what happened after Loki escaped. I'm not quite sure what it is. What happened after Loki escaped? I'm not quite sure. Are you saying in your headcanon he went and had a shawarma? I mean, I'm not quite sure. Maybe, you know what? Sorry, guys. I've been talking for 4 hours today. Maybe it's starting to go over my head a little bit. All right, next up. Blake Vapez writes, it's real. What did she agent see when she was possessed? I don't know. See, when I watched it for the second time and she was like, The first time I watched episode 2, I thought it was just gibberish. It's real. Like, it didn't mean anything. She could have, she could have been saying oogie boogie shoogie woogie, oogie boogie shoogie woogie. I mean, I thought it was just gibberish and nonsense. When she was going, it's real. Like, I thought it meant nothing. The second time I watched the episode, I thought, wait a minute. Maybe it's not just gibberish. Maybe she actually saw something. What did she see? What is real? I mean, did this variant take her to see the timekeepers? Was it something else entirely? What is it that is real that she's saying it over and over again? Now, look, it is still possible that maybe it was, as I originally suspected, just gibberish. Like, it doesn't mean anything she was saying was completely meaningless. But maybe it's something deeper. And if it is something deeper, then it is probably connected to whatever it is this variant's actual motivation and goals are, is probably one and the same. Like I said, I think in episode 3, we're going to find out what this variant's endgame is. And if what she was saying, if what that agent that they rescued going, it's real, if that actually means something, whatever the variant's endgame is probably connected to what it is that girl's saying. It's real. What's real? What is it? What are they chasing? Who knows? I think we're going to find out next week. Or it was just gibberish. It was just, panic gibberish. All right, next up. Han Solo writes, maybe it's just me. It may be coincidence. But going on the Kang being a timekeeper theory, the middle timekeeper looks like Jonathan Majors. Listen, I didn't give much attention to the theory that Kang was a timekeeper until somebody said it looked like Jonathan Majors. And of course, Jonathan Majors from Lovecraft Country is going to be playing Kang. And then when the first person that mentioned that to me, Han, saying, it kind of looks like Jonathan Majors, that's when I kind of started to go, oh, maybe it is, because it does kind of look like Jonathan Majors a bit. Maybe it is Kang. Again, I'm not convinced that Kang is one of the timekeepers, but that whole point about him looking a little bit like Jonathan Majors, that's the one that made me start thinking, well, maybe it is. So I don't know. We'll have to see, but I think you're on the right track there, Han. So we'll see. All right. Joel Barry writes, have you seen the Ethan Hawke movie Predestination? Yes. Time traveling cop movie. It's a great watch. It has a lot of parallels with Loki. Man, it's been a while since I watched that. But look, the reality is all time traveling. Good. By the way, Handsome Hawk. Very, very good. By the way, do any of you guys remember whenever I mention Ethan Hawke, I always say Handsome Hawk? Bonus pop culture points to any of you guys who know why I say that, who know why I refer to him as Handsome Hawk. If any of you guys actually know that, big up respect. Now, try to figure it out without Googling it, because obviously you can Google it and probably figure it out, but Handsome Hawk. I think you'll find there's a lot of similarities. Lita got it. It's from the Jimmy Kimmel sketch. That's right. I think it was from one of the Oscar sketches of Jimmy Kimmel. They had the Handsome Club. And Ethan Hawke was a member of the Handsome Club, and he brought an order of business, a request to officially be renamed to Handsome Hawk. And they granted his request. And Ethan Hawke's like, I'm Handsome Hawk. So ever since then, I don't know why, that always made an impression on me. So I've always just referred to him as Handsome Hawk. Anyway, getting back to it. If you look at a lot of the time travel, any movies that involve time travel, there are a lot of similarities in that. Now, it's been a long time since I've seen Predestination, but yeah, you might be on something. Anyway. All right. Next up. Thanks for sending that in, Joel. The Handsome Man's Club. That was it, the hero. All right, next up, Moon 7 Willow writes, did you see this from Variety? Based on the success of Loki, Disney Plus will now start releasing original series episodes on Wednesdays instead of Fridays. The stream announced. Now, we talked about that on the John Campea Show earlier today. Look, obviously, Disney did not make a decision like that based on one episode's release. They had decided that a long time ago. They decided that a while ago. But yeah, we did talk about that today. I mean, it's weird. I like it on Fridays, but I think the reason I really like it on Fridays is just because that's what I'm used to. That's just what I'm used to. And so I think we'll get used to it. I think working on Wednesdays will be fine. So original Disney Plus movies will come out on Fridays. All other original Disney Plus series will debut on Wednesdays. And I think we'll get used to that. And then it'll become the new normal and we'll be good. All right, next up. Daniel Luna writes, over under 15%, Lady Loki is working with Richard E. Grant's character in the show, and the timekeepers seem very shady. Again, well, it's hard to say that the timekeepers seem shady when we've never even met them yet, right? The information about the timekeepers seems a little suspect, but we can't say that the timekeepers seem shady because we've never even seen the timekeepers yet. Not really. But yeah, listen, Richard E. Grant clearly comes into play at some point. I've heard some theories. People think that Richard E. Grant will be an old man Loki. And when you think about it, that might not be far off. It might not be far off. But again, what is also equally a thing. So even though I wouldn't say 50%, like I wouldn't say it's likely, I'll go over 15% on that, Daniel. I'll take over the 15% on that. Okay, next up. Kal-El writes, long time, just wanted to show support to a good Canadian kid, Beauty, CA. Thank you so much, Kal-El. Appreciate that, man. Good Canadian kid indeed. Thank you so much, dude. Appreciate that, man. All right. Garrett Creer writes, the TV workers, do you mean the TVA workers, are people stolen from different timelines, aka Westview. Morbius will be from the 90s. Maybe. That's a possibility. Although stealing people from timelines would create Nexus events, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? But yeah, listen, there was a really good discussion in this episode between Loki and Mobius when, Loki says, every time I start thinking you're intelligent, you say something stupid like believing the timekeepers. And then Mobius said something really thing. Really? So you were born of an ice giant from, where did they say he was from again? Is it Jotunheim? I keep forgetting. Anyway, and then you were adopted by the All-Father Odin of the One-Eyed Raven. Does one sound actually any more crazy than the other? So I don't know. Maybe, but you're not alone, Garrett. A couple of people have been writing in today, suggesting that maybe the workers of the Time Variance Authority weren't made by the timekeepers, but they were actually plucked out of reality. Maybe they will. Maybe that's where they're going to go with it. And maybe we're going to find out that he was from the 90s, and that's why he's got this connection to the idea of the jet ski. We'll find out. All right, next up. Elif writes, will you do a pre-show for episode 3? Absolutely we are. Love these pre-game / spoiler discussion shows. Keep up the good work. I mean, they just help me be even more invested in the show. I don't know about you guys, but for me, the pregame and the spoiler discussions just get me even more invested in watching the shows. So I'm having a great time. I'm glad you guys are as well. So thanks for writing that in, Elif. All right, JMeister25 writes, to clarify, Strange is not the Sorcerer Supreme yet. That position is still vacant. All he does is guard the Time Stone and the New York Sanctum. What did he call himself? I'm freezing on this for a minute. Ah, that's right. See, I remember when he was fighting Thanos. Now I remember what he said. When he was fighting Thanos, he called himself something. He said, you are facing the Sorcerer Supreme. But he didn't say that. What he actually said to Thanos was, I believe what he said to Thanos is, you now face a master of the mystic arts, is what he actually said. So, yeah, but in WandaVision, right, Agatha says, you're even more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme. Well, the Ancient One's gone, so who's the Sorcerer Supreme? So I'm guessing it was probably just like Banner became Professor Hulk off camera. I'm guessing Stephen Strange probably became Sorcerer Supreme sometime off camera. So I'm guessing he's already Sorcerer Supreme, but maybe he's not. Maybe. Oh, by the way, everybody else in the live chat is also remembering Master of the Mystic Arts. Yes, that's what he said. Yeah, I have a feeling that he is now, and it just kind of that transition happened off camera, or maybe Doctor Strange 2 will be him becoming Sorcerer Supreme. But again, the way Agatha said it, being more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme, well, Ancient One isn't there, so who's she talking about? Probably Doctor Strange, so probably it happened off screen, but maybe it didn't. Maybe it didn't. We'll find out soon enough. All right, next up. Brandon, a random tire writes, did you hear Mobius say, I'm chomping at the bit? Yes. When he's talking to Kang's girlfriend. Well, I mean, in the show, she's not Kang's girlfriend that we know of. I know there's a connection, obviously, in the comic books. Owen Wilson says it in another movie. I can't remember, though. Well, I mean, chomping at the bit is a standard phrase. I mean, I've said chomping at the bit a million times, so I don't know if there's any, I don't know if that's supposed to be an Easter egg or anything like that, but we'll see. I don't remember which one it would have been either in that. Maybe it was High Noon or something like that, or Shanghai Noon. All right, next up. Patrick Conway writes, did the mortals that Lady Loki possesses gain super strength when under her control in order to hold their own against Loki? I can only assume they did, because when that one guy kicked Loki, like, he went flying in a way that a regular human kicking him probably wouldn't have sent him flying. So my guess is yes, maybe. I don't think it was definitive. I don't think they resolved that definitively in there, but I'm going to guess yes. Okay. Next up, that was Patrick. Next up, we got Casey McNatt, who writes, was there significance of the close-up of the pet? I was thinking this exact same thing the last time I watched the show. Okay. So, was there significance of the close-up on the pen Ravonna handed Mobius? The pen said Franklin D. Roosevelt High School, and Mobius remarks he doesn't remember the pen. Okay, I remember. I didn't really think about it the first couple of times I watched it, but the last time I watched this episode, that happened. I thought, does that mean... So, do you guys know? Do you know, is there anything of significance of Franklin Roosevelt High School? Because I don't know. Somebody's saying Nathaniel Richards. Did Nathaniel Richards go to Franklin Roosevelt High School? I mean, I don't know. Was that the name of Peter Parker's high school? I can't remember. But I also remember thinking, wait a minute. They specifically zoom in on that for a second. So it must mean something. So I don't know. Of course, Nathaniel Richards there's a connection in the comics as well to Kang, but I don't know what that thing might have meant. I don't know. Might be, but I noticed that exact same thing last time I watched it. By the way, K Majors sends in a super chat badge in the live chat to be supportive. Thank you, K Major. Appreciate that. Okay. Next up, Evelyn writes, one of two. I noticed that when Loki is reading his file, it says in Ragnarok, in Ragnarok, the entire civilization of Asgard was annihilated, and we know that's not true. A group survived Ragnarok, and Thanos, and it's on Earth. Yes. Could this be a hint that the TVA, not that it's evil, but does manipulate the truth? No, because even in the episode, I can't remember exactly where they say it, but in the episode themselves, they mentioned that Ragnarok destroyed the majority or most, right? Remember, it had I think everybody who was on the planet was dead. I don't think it was accounting for those who escaped off the planet before they happened, but there was like 9,000 something. I think the number was like 9,100 and something casualties, right? So, and then I think verbally it was mentioned that most of them died, I believe. Mobius, that's it. Jessica Jones is saying Mobius said most of the population because they were only able to get one ship full of people off, right? That was all they were able to do. So I think that is consistent. I think that's consistent. By the way, Camden Richards sends in a super chat badge in the live chat to be supportive. Thank you, Camden. Appreciate that. All right. Good observation, Evelyn. But again, I think Mobius addressed that. So I think it is consistent. I think we can count that as being a consistency, not an inconsistency. All right. Let's see. Next up, Tim Platt writes, do you think Loki was torn when he left to go with Enchantress? Apparently, he looked at least somewhat resentful to me. Certainly he didn't have his trademark swag. Yeah, I think he was torn. And I honestly think he went through not to be sneaky. I think he went through because he felt he needed to do it. I think he just felt like, and he didn't have time to hang around and explain it to Mobius. I think he went through because he felt, I can't let this person get away. So I don't think he was trying to be sneaky. I don't think he was trying to escape. I mean, maybe he was. We'll find out in episode 3. But I completely agree, Tim. I think there was a moment of doubt. I think he was debating with himself whether to do it. But I think ultimately he did it because he felt he needed to. So we'll find out, though. We'll find out soon enough. But I agree. All right, Casey McNatt writes, yeah, you can't judge an actor/actress's performance on just 5 minutes. We felt the same way with John Walker, and after a couple of episodes, I think people warmed up to him. Yeah, of course, Walmart Captain America, right? Like when all we see is just him at the end of episode 1 taking the shield and looking like the old man from Up with a Captain America mask on. We're like, who's this damn Walmart Captain America? Screw this guy. Well, guess what? I ended up loving that character. I love that character. And I think I'm going to love this character moving on. So yeah, let's not jump to too many conclusions about the Enchantress or Lady Loki or again, whatever it is we're calling them. Let's not jump to too many conclusions just yet. Let's wait till they're on screen more than a couple of minutes. So good point, Casey. All right. Zombitron 5678 writes, Loki can shift between male and female. Maybe this variant prefers to be female and is the split, while ours prefers male. Could be too controversial. I don't think that's what they're doing. Listen, again, by saying, their sexuality is fluid, I don't know. It could mean different things to the Time Variance Authority. But Loki in the shows and everything has always been a guy. I mean, they always refer to him and Thor always refer to each other as brother, right? So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, we are only 2 episodes in. There's so much information still we don't have. And maybe by the end of this, we're going to have a much better understanding about the nature of Loki, from both his character, physically, all that kind of stuff. Maybe we'll get a lot more. Right now, it's hard to say because there's just not enough information right now. Just not enough information yet. We'll find out. Okay, next up. Jim Riley writes, how can the big guy overpower Loki? Loki has shown himself to be stronger than Cap. The guy he was fighting was only human and Loki is Asgardian, which is exactly, Jim, why somebody just wrote in saying, okay, so does the person they possess take on their abilities as well? And again, to me, it seemed like it, because when he kicked Loki, like I know that was a big guy, but that guy can't kick something that's 175 pounds and send it flying 8 feet. Like, you can't do it. That human being cannot do that. So I think they were right in saying that they probably take on some of those abilities too. Again, we're speculating because not a lot of information is given, but that does seem what's going on. All right. Cesar Hernandez writes, where are the Avengers in 2050? Rockstar disaster. Yeah. Why weren't the Avengers there to help everybody? Huh? What's going on? Again, 2050, who knows? Maybe there were 15 other disasters going on around the world that the Avengers were trying to take care of at that exact moment, Caesar. All right. King Spartacus writes, my voice is really starting to go here, guys. Do you think the timekeepers are actually dead and that are bad guys? I'll try this again. Do you think the timekeepers are actual dead and that are bad guys, ultimately setting up Loki to be a good guy? Well, I think Loki's always been kind of portrayed that, I mean, they portrayed him a bit as a good guy in Thor Ragnarok. Like he eventually fights side by side with Thor and all that kind of stuff. But are you suggesting that the timekeepers are dead or are you suggesting that they're bad guys? So I'm not sure. But anyway, I think what is clear here is that there's something going on with the timekeepers. They've been very, very shifty about the information they're giving about them. It is strange that only the one girl has seen them. Mobius hasn't seen them. There's something going on. Again, a lot of people are comparing it to a Wizard of Oz situation. It may very well be that. All right, Venkant Ram writes, I'm going to pay to say this. Dinosaurs existed for 60. I knew somebody was going to say something about this. Existed 64 to 240 million years ago, not 2 million years ago. I hate dinosaur misinformation. No problem. I get it. You hear a piece of information, it just itches at your brain. You got to go out there and say it. You're totally justified in doing it, Venkant. Totally justified in doing it. All right, Casey McNatt writes, man, if Vormir was one of the places the time bomb was targeting, it makes you wonder if it changes the planet. What will it mean for Red Skull? Don't know. I mean, again, it depends on where on Vormir does it go. Where does it go? I mean, maybe it was just a bunch of random places, and Vormir was just one of the random places they sent it. And again, my understanding of these time charges, these reset charges, I'm still unclear about, because they showed it as being very localized, like they affect a limited space. So I don't think it goes and just wipes out all of Vormir, right? I don't think it does that, but I don't know. Who knows? I just don't have enough information yet. Okay. Let's see here. Mukbang Reviews writes, you are amazing, and I just wanted to thank you for broadcasting. It means a lot to many people. I'm not even watching Loki week to week. All right. Well, thank you for writing that in. And listen, the honor and fun is all mine. I have a blast doing these. These are great. I love that you guys are joining in. You guys have been teaching me a lot, like a lot of things that went over my head. You guys have been filling me in on. This has been a lot of fun. It's great. I love doing it. So thank you for being here for that, Mukbang. I really appreciate it. All right. And then our last question of the day. Mukbang Reviews also writes in, I like binging, but I appreciate seeing you talk about things that interest you. Also, I like your team. You also handle random/rude questions very well. Many thanks for being a great example. Well, thank you for that, man. I really appreciate it. And thank you for being here and being a part of that community, dude. I really appreciate it. And with that, guys, obviously K Major and Camden sent in super chat badges, which you mentioned. That'll do it. You can tell my voice is going. That'll do it for this week's installment of our Loki episode 2 open spoiler discussion. What an episode. Thank you for all the information, guys, that you guys gave. I saw the conversation was great in the live chat. Thank you guys for being here. What a blast. And don't forget, next week on Tuesday, we will be doing our pregame show for Loki episode 3. And then, of course, our spoiler discussion on the Wednesday for episode 4. Guys, thanks so much for being here and making watching Loki even more fun. So thank you so much for that. Again, don't forget the John Campea Show is back again tomorrow. Make sure you come and join us for that. Erin is supposed to be on it, but she's in Texas right now. And the plan is for her to Skype in, but I'm not sure if the internet is good enough at where she's at, but I don't know. But hopefully Aaron Cummings will be on the show with me tomorrow. And then, of course, Robert Meyer-Burnett will be back after that. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot for joining me here. That's it for me for now. Hope to see you guys again tomorrow for the John Campea Show. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.